So the novel is called Circuit. The cover makes it look like a science fiction novel, but it's not. At least I don't think it is. I just wrote it. What do I know? Okay. This is called An Unfinished Conversation. It's from the first chapter. And you might see some themes in my variations here. Okay. Nancy Roth was having a bad dream. She navigated herself through a series of winding corridors, one of which led her into the familiar dusty, sunlit barn of the art program she had attended that summer. She stood there gazing at the row of kiln ovens, and there he was, sitting in one of those ovens, in a perfect lotus position, the way he was sitting the first time she saw him. He never knew she saw him deep in meditation, deep in the woods, never knew how long she had planned to get him. Now they stared at each other silently as she placed her hand on the door of the oven. Even asleep, all of Nancy's senses were operating, and she drew back from the gauzy heat. She slowly pulled on a pair of protective gloves and adjusted her goggles as fellow artists worked at humming wheels, creating, oblivious that Nancy was about to incinerate this man, who was just 6 years her senior, but had seemed light years away from the high school and college boys she had known. "You'll just end up burning every little thing about me into your memory," he warned, as he fiddled with his parrot feather earring. His jeans sat low enough on his narrow hips to expose his tiny seahorse tattoo. The flames danced in his eyes as he continued. "It's not worth it. I was just a one-night stand. I already remember nothing of you." When Nancy finally struggled to the threshold of consciousness, everything in the room was velvety black, and for a few moments, she had no idea where she was. She could have been waking up in a bed anywhere, back home in Stepping Stone Harbor, or a dormitory room in New London, or in the small cabin she had been assigned in Vermont, where she had spent the last 6 weeks drawing, painting, and discovering her affinity with clay. The fact that she was naked and not alone in the bed did not immediately ground Nancy in present reality. At nearly 21, she would have cheerfully admitted that she had shared a bed before, probably too many times. The boy lying next to her in the darkness said, "No kidding," as if he had x-rayed into her thoughts, but it was just a snatch of some conversation he was having in his sleep. Zach Pinsky. It was her Zach, her boyfriend of nearly 6 months, who claimed that he never remembered his dreams, and her whereabouts came back to her in a rush, replacing one nightmare with another. "He doesn't know." This is what Nancy answered to her own question when she spotted Zach waiting for her at the arrivals gate. She had landed in Washington, D.C., and he couldn't see what she had done. He had no reason to suspect anything. She loved Zach. He had told her that he wanted to marry her someday, and she believed him. Why would she cheat on him now, when he was her future? She could not answer this question, despite the sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach which told her that something else was horribly, stupidly wrong. It was much safer to focus on her own transgressions, to tell herself that everything between them had been fine, just peachy, before Vermont happened, and she had shot it all to hell. She had even spent the long 4th of July weekend eating, swimming, playing tennis, and watching an impressive fireworks display at the Pinsky's Country Club. Both Zach's father, a corporate lawyer, and mother, a substitute grade school teacher who dabbled in jewelry design, had treated Nancy with casual warmth, as if she were already part of their family. Zach had picked her up at the airport the evening before the festivities, straight from his summer internship in the city. Power tie, sunglasses, one perfect red rose held out to her as she came through the gate. Actually, the same one she was coming through now. But the first time he had spotted her first. He had whispered, "Knew you'd be the first one off," as they awkwardly embraced around Nancy's bulky carry-on bag. A balding businessman, wearing an expensive gray suit and a cellular phone, had been behind her. By the way, this is 1991. and had snapped, move it along. You're holding up the entire goddamn plane, goddamn kids. Watch your briefcase, mister, Nancy had replied, but kindly. This man had obviously been going without sex since 3 Mile Island, and she and Zach were going off like the fireworks, already in process over the Potomac River. Zach had hoisted her bag and smiled at its weight. Oh, tell me you're staying for the rest of the summer. Tell me you're not going to that art camp, after all. But this time, Nancy had allowed all of the briefcase-toting animals to cut in front of her while deboarding. She touched her ears, a nervous habit, to remember what earrings she had in. Tiny amethyst hearts. Hey, Nancy. There was no long-stemmed American beauty for her this time, but she supposed she should be grateful that he had met her plane at all. Zach was wearing a tie-dyed Thames College t-shirt, faded jeans and tennis sneakers. He just barely stood still under his girlfriend's scrutiny, which was not really a bad sign in itself, since he was incapable of standing still. Hi, handsome. They kissed, Zach pushing his tongue past Nancy's lips and teeth. She tasted cigarettes and wintergreen lifesavers and thought of how much Zach liked to crunch these mints in the dark in front of a mirror and marvel at the fluorescent sparks they made, like miniature lightning bolts. To be continued.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Kat. This was wonderful.
TC Gardstein. Thank you very much, TC. You can talk to TC now. That ends another series of the Cornelia Street Son of a Pony Poetry Series. Thank you so much for coming. Please come back next week to see special guest host Bob Hart. Thank you.